Welcome back. I'm Connie Sokol, your host, and I am thrilled to have our beautiful guest today to share with us all about love and loss and living a full life. Welcome to our studio, Lisa Valentine Clark.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like I need to have this big show number in the back because you're used to being on stage, just as our own little studio things. But I just love and adore you. And I know the women that are listening particularly are fangirling just like I am, trying to be like calm and cool and collected. But I am going to give the official bio in case you don't know a lot about Lisa and you've been living in a cave, but I will tell you the official. But today we're going to talk about the navigating of the roads that is less traveled, those unexpected things that happen in your life and how we can transition, we can bounce, we can move through it and use it to benefit and bless our lives. And she is the queen of this particular area. And I cannot wait for her to distill upon us her wisdom and learning. But meanwhile, her beginnings. She graduated with a degree in English from Brigham Young University, and she got her start with the improv group, the Garens, and now has co-founded another group, improv group, the Thrillionaires, which is thrilling. And she also has done, if you have seen her, she has done TV. She has done a movie, Once I Was a Beehive. She has done a radio. She has done shorts, pretty darn funny. She is everywhere. You've seen her as the chapbooks woman that's gone viral. And now she is on BYU Radio, as I mentioned, and has the Lisa Show, which is fantastic. And I love it. And she is here today to help us understand and navigate these things as I said, in that unexpected life, she and her late husband, Dr. Christopher Clark, that navigated his illness and then eventually his passing in 2020 and still with 5 children. So let's jump into that whole theme, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Did you anticipate any of this movie, book, TV, all of these things? Did you someday I'm going to have that? Did you anticipate this at all?
No. That's the short answer is no. I just sort of stumbled into my life, in my personal life, my professional life, all of it. I mean, of course, I was a plucky, spirited gal from Lincoln, Nebraska, with lots of hopes and dreams. And I always knew that I would have a fun life. And I always knew that I would have an interesting life. But the details were all very muddy.
And yet, the thing that I keep seeing, and I've seen themes as I've prepared for this and the LDS Living article, BYU article, all these different things, and you, just knowing you, I see these different themes emerge, and it seems like this thread of up-leveling, like you take it, and we're going to talk about your BYU devotional where you talk about the yes and. This, you take what God has given you and you use it to up-level and flourish and bloom. And it's giving me goosebumps because I think this is such a life skill that we all need in being able to not wallow and whine, but I'm sure there was the share of that and ice cream tubs are involved. But
For sure.
I'm just thinking, tell us how you started with the comedy in high school and then it kind of grew and developed. In fact, that's even how you met your husband, right? Is that humor, you were doing a play together. Is that right?
Yeah. So we were both English majors. He was fresh off of his mission from Finland, and I was the English Society president. And we did a really horrible play. Like, it wasn't very good, and it was also really cheesy, but we took it all very seriously. Called The Mysteries. It was a collection of Bible stories. So, very hilarious content to begin with, but we just sort of made it really fun and funny to us. I don't know if anybody else thought it was funny. He was cast as Satan. I was cast as a chicken on Noah's Ark. And so
best chicken you've ever seen.
The best chicken, the most committed chicken. My mother-in-law to this day remembers my performance as a chicken, asks me to do it regularly. And so we were just going to have a fun time doing it. And we did.
I love it. And again, I mean, really, being a chicken, but that commitment, like to where you are and what you're doing and be all in. And I think improv helps with that too, where it only works if you're absolutely committed. There's no small parts, only small actors, right? So you have this commitment, and I see that threaded through your life, and also this theme of humor, no matter what you're doing and what you're in. So take us through, you end up doing, I'm not going to do it chronologically, but you end up doing this movie, Once I Was a Beehive. And I have to tell you, my daughters and I came to the premiere. We were invited to the premiere. She had the poster in her room. Our signature moment is the chili. Do you remember? She's like bearing her soul at the end, and you're eating that chili and you're nodding sympathetically and sucking down that chili because it's so good. It's like our big joke in the family. But this to me, This is the dynamic that you present. And how do you do that? You have this vulnerability and this desire and ability to be able to connect with women, particularly, and be able to be there for someone, and yet have this sense of humor that appropriately puts things back where it belongs. Where did you get this?
Oh, I for sure got it. I was nurtured in my family, my mom and dad, like my dad just made us laugh all the time. My mom didn't take herself seriously. She was really super committed to whatever she did. And I have really creative brothers and sisters, and sort of like in our home. And I don't know if it was just like growing up and just kind of like, I just kind of was a little bit awkward and just not really caught up with my peers. And I was always kind of like the different one because I was the only Mormon. And so I always kind of felt off. I think like most people do. Like, I don't think that there was anything sort of special about my otherness. I think everybody just sort of feels that. And just kind of like where I came from, it was like, well, this is who you are. So commit to it 100% instead of just like, always being sort of embarrassed of it, or like, I mean, listen, I'm self-deprecating enough, and I don't take myself too seriously. And so I think I've collected people in my life that also like, they love their thing, but they don't take themselves too seriously. So like making a movie like Once I Was a Beehive or Once I Was Engaged, like that's my dream, because I just want to make movies with my friends. And we're all very serious artists, and we take our craft and our storytelling very seriously, but we just want to like make each other laugh. And that's how I just want to live my life, whether, it makes money or not. I really hope it makes money. Please go download Once I Was Engaged so we can make more movies. But I mean, so I don't try to pretend like I don't care, it's not like that, but it's more like I'm doing this for the sake of doing it and for this life experience. And I can control that, but I can't control the outcome of if people like it or if they don't or whatever. But I sort of make my creative, decisions, and maybe a lot of my life decisions on that as well, of like, well, I get a kick out of this. Well, I enjoy this, does it allow me to have fun with the people that I really like and care about. And that's led me to really fun places.
It's a beautiful life philosophy. And I can see where it is taking you on these beautiful roads, because that feeling is, I feel, what draws people in. Your confidence and commitment to where you are and what you're doing, and a lack of focus on what will people think, gives people watching permission to do that same thing too. And isn't that, especially as women, men and women listening, but especially as women, that's what we need, because we're so busy looking horizontally. And you've kind of addressed that. And I'm going to pop all over the place as we weave through this, because I want this to be so organic. You wrote the book, writing a book, just put that on your resume, just, with your left toe. But you wrote Real Moms, right? Making it up as we go. And I won't give it away, but you talk about painting your shoe for the red carpet. What happens with that is hysterical. But this is what I'm talking about, where you give moms permission to not aspire to this Pinterest-worthy sort of fake life. What draws you to share things with women like that? And how have you been able to communicate that with women to help them to be real moms? What are some things that you see that can help us to stay in that space?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That's a big compliment. Thank you. Because I never want, I think in this day and age of like, saturation of social media, and this is what my life is, and this is how I want people to see me. And certainly I keep things private and don't share everything on social media, but I've also, I started raising kids without it. And then I raised kids with it. So I feel like it gives me a unique perspective. Like I tell my kids, I'm the grandmother of the internet and I remember when. But I do think that it gives me a unique perspective in that I feel like all of this, and myself included, especially when I was at home with 5 kids, super busy with a husband that was in school full time and working full time and in a bishopric, or like, doing lots of big things and always gone. Like what I really wanted is connection to other women, right? Like I didn't want to be shown, oh, well, I look at her house or look at her day. My kid won't, stop wearing the Spider-Man pajamas, but their kids look so like picture perfect, or, whatever, like, we never had a ton of money. And so like keeping up with the Joneses, just like, I just sort of like rejected that right from the get-go of like, well, that's fine for other people, but that's just not me. So I'm going to find people, I think it's kind of selfish. Like, where are my friends? Where are my people?
Yes,
and I just want to collect people And luckily, like I've been able to like have a career of that too, of like, I just want to work with funny, talented people. So come in to the fold,
Yes.
and let's have a dinner party after. And let's just like, that's just how I want to live my life. And I don't like delineate it between, categories of, this is how I live for, online, or these people. I just think, come sit by me and tell me what you really think. And I'll tell you what I really think. And we can encourage each other that way, because we're all winning, we're all losing. And there's such an emptiness in trying to like, yep, I got it all figured out. It's all great. But there's such a connection in saying, this really horrible thing happened to me, and this isn't how I thought I was going to mother, and you'll never guess what happened. And then for somebody else to be just generous and then say, oh yeah, me too, and then also like, let's just laugh at it. Like I've had horrible things happen in parenting or in my marriage or whatever, that like at the time were not funny, but in a couple of months, and some of them a couple of years, and I was retelling them, even crying, it was funny.
Yes.
And so I do feel like that there's maybe like one or two things that are never funny, but most things are on the table. And so for me, the long way to answer that question is really, I just feel like people want connection, and it's really hard to be vulnerable, but the payoff is so worth it. Real connection.
Yes.
It's real friendship.
That better.
Yeah.
And the way that you take what you have and you offer it with the authenticity. I remember reading about how when you were in England, it was a hard time, and you had 3 little boys or something. And you said, Matlock, I would watch it at 1:00 every day. And you're like, that was a dark time because, Matlock, I mean, come on.
Matlock, but we've all had every day at 1 p.m. There were only 4 channels, and 2 of them were the same. But I just needed like some American like TV. And to me, that was like my touchstone. Like,
yes, your connection back. Right. And that's what I'm talking about is I love that you are open about that. And I think another key thing that I've seen, because I've been watching this saying, how do you do this so naturally and beautifully? I also notice you don't stay in the dark space. You use that humor as a sort of a springboard to be able to move forward. And I think that's what keeps that positive, connecting, joyful energy and gives other people permission to soak in it either, right? Use that humor, see the humor in it, see that you can use it for good. I think Nora Ephron is the one that said, it's all copy, right? It's all copy. You can use it. You'll use it on stage. You'll use it somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And I love that you give women permission. I think that's where they feel like they can go on camera with you, but they could also sit in the kitchen counter, have a cookie and let's dish. Right. So, and that's, I think what women may not understand on the daily is that not wearing it all on your sleeve, but being authentically vulnerable and sharing in those moments. But then like you do, springboard. And I want to talk about this humor, again, this thread that weaves through all that you do. Yes, you've been able to be humorous about things that have been hard, but what about the unfunny times? Like you said, there are times when it's, a couple months later. That's a big coping skill. It seems to me everyone has our favorites, right? Mm-hmm. That humor would be a good coping skill and a go-to for you. What were some of the other tools and for those that are listening, her husband had Lou Gehrig's disease and passed away in 2020, but in those years that he was dealing with that, and you saw the deceleration of his abilities and things like that. I mean, you're living with it on the daily and watching it before your eyes, like live TV. What were some of the tools that got you through that? Besides the humor, because we saw the humor and the humor that you two shared and the humor in your family and things like that. What were some of the other tools that really helped you also?
Well, I think really looking at it and being real. So, we talk about authenticity and vulnerability all of the time, but you got to really feel your feelings. And I feel like your capacity to feel the deepest, darkest lows also cracks you wide open to feel higher highs. And so I do feel like that there's purpose in it. And I don't want to be like, oh, there's purpose in suffering, because I sort of hate myself when I say that. But I do think it is true. And the thing that was great about Christopher is he kind of showed us the way of doing that, because, we laughed every day, but he did when he needed to feel the gravity of his situation and the deep sense of loss, he felt it. Mm-hmm. He kept that private. And I feel like that was totally appropriate. And that was something that like we shared together. And so I do feel like some of those tools that helped me personally was just having my person, right? Like when I would get, just overwhelmed with like, this is the absolute worst and it's not going to end well. In fact, it's going to end even worse. And I hate it all. And the best person I know is literally suffering and wasting away, 4.5 years living with this. While we're raising 5 kids at different levels, and then at the end during a global pandemic and by ourselves, and I'm trying to start a new career, like it was ridiculous and so hard. And I think really looking at it and being real about it and letting yourself feel that, I've talked about this before. Christopher was very public about it when he went to go see a therapist for the first year of like, I have a terminal disease, I'm in my 40s, like I have 5 kids at home. I don't know how to wrap my head around this. And he got some really good advice of like, spend 10 or 15 minutes just totally feeling sorry for yourself, that you're going to die earlier than you wanted to, that this is awful, that this is going to be painful, and then get on with your day and do the things that you need to do. And so and I liked that because he didn't need 10 or 15 minutes every day because he came to terms with it. But when he needed it, he needed it. And so I've tried to allow that. Well, sometimes I'll have these moments, waves of grief that will hit me and I'll be like, and I try not to let it ruin my entire day as it used to, but I try to really feel it and honor it and feel it for as long as I need to, and recognize that I'm not always going to feel that way all of the time, and not to get stuck. And that's the word that I sort of keep in my brain of like, because it would be really easy for me to stay in my cave and just stay in my bed. It's a really comfortable bed. And I have like really nice bedding and like a million pillows and like a TV. It's like perfect. But I need to not stay stuck there because I need to participate in life. And I really feel like a strong sense of identity of self, of, a spiritual, however you want to explain it, calling to just not get stuck. And so I think that mind frame has helped. Also having 2 or 3 people who you can just tell everything to, even in your darkest. I have a couple of friends where I'm like, I know this sounds crazy, but this is what's going on in my brain right now. And they'll look at me like, that's awful. That's crazy. That's not true. And I'm like, I know, but but you can be honest, and having a couple of people that you can tell them and that they will trust it and say, I'm so sorry, and sit with you and cry with you. That I think that's really vital. And then I also feel like, and this kind of goes to humor, but just like having a purpose and giving yourself, a break from sort of grief or sadness or the heaviness and the realities of life. Again, not to overgloss it or but after you feel your feelings, not staying there, but having a purpose, making a movie with your friends, writing a book, or whatever your creative outlet is. I haven't played the piano for years, probably over a decade. And then after about 6-7 months after Chris died, and I just was so in my head and not ready to see people or be in the world. And I started playing the piano again. I'll never play publicly for anybody, but having like, I've got to learn this piece, or just a focus on something that's good. And those kind of coping skills have saved my life. So.
Beautiful. It's so, again, about that, whatever's coming, you take it. And I love that you said, feel the feels, like take it, feel it, embrace it, and then take the good from it and move on from it. I'm going to read this quote if that's okay. You gave a beautiful BYU devotional. I've listened to it. I've re-listened to it. It's called Yes and Run, Don't Walk. Go check that out. We'll have a link in the show notes. It's so good. And in this, you were talking about Chris, and I love this when he couldn't do things that he loved to do. And he was so talented and so capable, just like you, in so many different ways. And the beauty of you two, somebody called you Lois and Clark, right? It's you two were just 2 peas in a pod. But I love this, what you said about Chris. When he could no longer walk, he focused on teaching and directing. I'm sorry. Sorry, this is so unprofessional. Sorry.
Oh, it's sweet.
When he could no longer use his arms, he didn't spend time worrying about not playing the piano or typing. He found ways to use technology to speak. He stopped teaching. He directed. He stopped directing. He wrote plays. He kept focusing on what he could do, often expressing gratitude to God for his life and blessings. He used to tell me that he felt like George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, that he was the luckiest man in the whole world with the best friends and family. Boy, it's made me think of that, of what matters most. And you see the refinement in him, even though he was a marvelous man, you see this deepening, this refining. How did that refine and strengthen you and even your children? I've seen, as my friends and I have gone through difficult times, and how it's prepared our children for things that are coming to them in the future. How did it strengthen and refine you and your kids?
Wow. Well, that's a huge question. But like a really good one, because, you know, I remember when he closed the piano.
Mm.
He was in a wheelchair, but he could still kind of move his arms and stuff. And he closed it. He stopped playing. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "My piano playing days are over." It was a good run. He had been trained as a teenager to be a classical pianist. Like he could play Rachmaninoff, like he was bananas good. And I was like, I just panicked because he would just sit and play. It was just such a part of our, like, I just loved it. And he's like, "Nope." And I said, "No, you can still play. You were just playing. Like, just keep playing until you can't play." And he's like, "No, I'm just getting frustrated. And I know I'll get frustrated because I can't play like I used to. So now I just want to like focus on, like, I can still direct. I can still do other things that like I love. So I'm just going to focus on that." And I was like, "That's great. What a great attitude. Excuse me for a minute." And then I went into the bathroom and just like ugly sobbed, like, "This is it? Like, this is it? He can't play the piano anymore?" Like, I didn't know that this was going to hurt me so personally. And because it was such a, like a little, this is only the beginning. He's going to lose other things too. And pretty soon he's not going to be able to type. And pretty soon he's not going to be able to talk. And then you're going to have to prepare him to die. Like it, just like my brain was. And so that was the beginning of me saying, "This is happening. You better get with the program and learn how to carry this, or you're going to fall apart every day, and you're going to miss the joy that is surrounding you." I used to like take care of him, right? And it took me about like 2 hours, like to get him up in the morning and brush his teeth and all the whole thing and get him dressed and stretched and ready for the day. And we used to like talk and like, we had a routine so that I would make him laugh. So it wasn't so like, "I'm caring for my dying husband." So it was like,
Yes.
"Well, on days of your life, you'll never guess what happened to Marlene." Like I would just tell him really dumb things to make him laugh. But one day it was just overwhelming. And I was just looking at this wonderful man and I would just started crying, like, "You don't deserve this." And, and he had later told me, because, he was like, "Why are you crying?" Like surprised that I was crying. And I was like, "Oh, my
I don't
husband
know.
is like the best man ever. And he has this terminal disease. It's really sad. You want me to tell you about it?" Like, "What do you mean? Why am I crying?" He's like, "Oh, that old thing. Like, aren't you over that? Little old news, boring, move on." And he was not mad at God. He was not mad at how unfair it was. There were moments of that in the beginning, but like the last 3 years, he wasn't like that. He just thought, life's not fair for anybody. Lots of people, I've had such a wonderful life. I have the best, like family and friends, like, and I've had this creative life. I've been able to do so many things. Why would I ruin what this means here at the end by thinking? And that really like changed like my heart to, it really softened it and like changed my whole perspective of God's purpose for each one of us, how he loves us, how he trusts us, and what faith really means. I think sometimes we guess what God means and we hold on to that and we pretend like that's faith. Well, he probably is blessing me because I'm righteous. Or he's probably, like we put these things in our head like that aren't true. And something that Chris taught me in going through this is that no matter what we go through, God is with us. And I saw evidence of that every day. And because Chris was looking at it, then I was looking for it. And then I was telling the kids, "Oh, do you see that? That means, God loves us. Do you see that? Oh, that was a miracle. Do you see how we got this addition built on our house so your dad didn't have to be in a hospital bed in the middle of our kitchen because we had a split level? Do you see how fast it happened? Do you see how so-and-so volunteered to do this and so did this?" And they were following the Spirit because they just said, "I don't know why, but I need to help you with it." I said miracle after miracle. And I would just point out the miracles, and my kids, I just hope that they take that with them for the rest of their lives. I'll tell you, you won't find more sweet, loving, empathetic children than mine who are adults now. And they see things that other people don't see. They see suffering. They have the ability to mourn with their peers at a way that I did not have the capacity to at their age. And I didn't want any of that for them. I didn't, I wish their dad were still here, but if he's not, and I didn't get to choose, then I will take any benefit, any blessing, and try to like highlight it as much as I can for them. Like I always tell them, well, sorry about your dad, but I found you the best dad, and then we kind of joke about that, about like, oh, this is the worst, but you don't get to dictate what your kids are going to learn. But boy, I'm proud of like the human beings that they are right now. And I'm so proud. Like I'm in awe of like I get to be their mom, and they show me all this empathy that translates into how they interact with other people, which is all I ever wanted. Like as a mom, I just wanted to send out like happy, productive people into the world to make the world a better place. And they humbled me, and we're like, we're already like that. We're just going to be more like that. Don't mess it up.
We came that way. We're good.
All right. Let's just have Sunday dinners together.
That is incredible. And I love that you shared the things you did, unwittingly sharing what you did to make that even more so, by pointing out the miracles, by putting that lens on it. And both of you, that is what is so stunning, is that both you and Christopher were able to align with that way of looking and being and living. And your children just picked right up on that, and that this is the new norm. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Not that it's, without it.
We don't get to choose like how our kids interpret what we see, and some of my kids we don't even share the same faith, but we share the same love and empathy towards the human family and loyalty to each other in a way that has really, really humbled me.
And that connector, you just see these layered things for everything that happens, and without being a vinyl sticker on the wall, but you do see those, you feel them, and you go, like you said, I wouldn't have thought to do it that way. I wouldn't have wanted to do it that way, but boy, this outcome was incredible. Just absolutely beautifully shared. I'm just thinking of my own kids. You're just inspiring me to think about how to do that with my own kids. And those that are listening, I'm sure are doing the same thing. I want to veer from that too, and kind of incorporate and springboard off that into these faith-based tools, because what we talk about here is this intersection between faith and creativity and professional skill. So faith-based and being funny, that's hard. That is tricky. That is a tricky thing. And you have found, and even now you're saying you have kids that are not even of your faith. How have you navigated being faith-based and being funny? Has it been difficult? Have there been moments of funniness in trying to navigate that? Has there been difficult choices to make? How have you made that work?
I think for sure. I feel like, and this is my own personal belief, I feel like God, through the Spirit, speaks to us in our own languages. I really do. I feel like it's very individual. And when I pray, my personal faith, like relationship, is just to lay everything out, because I figure God knows anyway.
Right.
So spoiler. And I also really do feel with my whole heart that we are supposed to have joy, that none of us were sent to have an earthly experience to be damned or to be punished. And yet, as I look around at horrible things that we do to each other, the horrible things that people go through, even much worse than my husband or my family have ever been through, and I try to like reconcile that in my mind with my faith, I am sort of in awe of the whole like human family and the capacity for love. And I mean, talk about your vinyl lettering cheesy moment for me is that I really do feel like it all boils down to love, right? Like this is the purpose of life. And we have the opportunity to show and share love, and in the final weeks of Chris's life, that was so manifested in how people wanted to express their love to him, how all he wanted to do was just to tell everyone how much he loved them and why he loved them. And I just thought, with all the creative projects that he's done, and I mean, he has such an impressive resume, and none of that matters except for those relationships and those expressions of love. And so I have felt that so profoundly. And I do feel like that we all have unique talents and gifts, and that we can use those to express love. And I know it sounds so weird, but I feel like I have been given a capacity for joy and for love that is just expands. And I do that through a lot of ways. And one of the ways that I do that is through humor, and not by haha, funny, funny, and zing. Here's the joke set up, punchline, but it comes from like just like the capacity of joy that comes from the love that I have witnessed and been a part of in my life. And again, I know that sounds so cheesy, kind of like it's just because I love, but like I joke with a couple of my close friends of like, I love it at 10. That's the only way I know how to love. That's just like, I'm in. Once you're my friend forever. And I'm not for everyone. And that's okay, because I just love it at 10. So take it or leave it. And it's so closely tied with my faith and my love and appreciation to my Heavenly Father that for you to ask, like, where does that come from? They're just so connected, and they have been since I was a little girl, that I can't even see it in a different way, because I always know that that's acceptable to the Lord. Like I don't feel like it's in conflict. I know some people have weird, complicated relationship with, if you should laugh or be,
Right.
light-minded and stuff. And I don't see those as mutually exclusive. I never have.
And
Maybe that's my blind spot. I don't know.
No, I think that's what's beautiful. And again, that goes back to the authenticity. And for those listening, what I'm hearing from you is those spiritual gifts, and honor those gifts, develop those gifts, and celebrate those gifts, because it is a gift to have two sides of the same coin, to have that funny and that faith-based, to see through a lens of that joyful humor. And I hear your humor. It's not malicious. It's not sarcastic. It's not any of that. And it's not off on strange roads. It really is bubbling enthusiasm for life is how it feels. And what a gift that you give. Again, I go back to that. You give permission to people to dig out their spiritual gifts, or to recognize them and say, I'm not going to be shamed by this gift. It's a gift. And even if it's not singing and it's not quilting, it is a spiritual gift. And I can develop that, and I can bring joy to others and myself through sharing that gift. And that's what you and Christopher have done all the way along. And now you're continuing on that legacy. And I want to kind of build on that too. You had random acts that you did, which was gorgeous and beautiful. And I can't imagine all the amazing experiences that you had.
Oh, I loved it. Oh, the best job.
Really quickly, before we jump to another thing, what was one of your favorite things about being on that random acts? What was one of that experience of filming that? And, TV is different than improv in some ways, but in some ways the same, because I've done a little bit of both too, but, and movies. So what was this experience like for you?
Well, Random Acts was wonderful because I'll tell you, first of all, cast and crew were just some of the best humans in the world. And so we were like a big family, and everybody just we all felt like so lucky, like we get to do these great things for other people. You get to do it, and you get to know people in sort of their darkest, trial of life, and say, I know this does not make it better, but maybe this will help some. And you're connecting people who just want to help just for no other reason than they just want to help and give back. And you connect them together, and then you see you get to witness that. I mean, I just would cry and cry and cry through the whole episode, because you just see the best of humanity, and it's highlighting the best of people. And it really was very faith promoting to me. The world seems horrible and everyone's mean and, and divided by important things and dumb things and everything. And it sort of erased that a little bit and showed you, no, most people are good and they want to do good. Even in all of our differences. And when we come together, we're stronger than when we are individually, we need each other and we have to help each other. And you offering something that's no big deal for you can mean life and death to somebody else. It can really make a difference. And so seeing that power in that, I just was very humbled by the whole experience.
I love that. And again, that threads through that love that you feel and want to share. And And it touch points again, that it ripples out. When people see that, they watch that show, they start looking for those ways to start giving and sharing. And I think it takes away the awkwardness a little bit, because a lot of times you do want to help. You do want to share, be like, am I going to offend that person? Or are they going to look at me
what
weird?
do I say? What do I do?
Yes.
And I've just learned something, anything. It doesn't matter. Like, don't overthink it. Just do it. It's better to write the note than just say, oh, I should have done something and didn't, even if it's nothing.
Yes. And I think Random Acts gave that permission again, that it became sort of a new norm, the playing field of, oh, I watched that Random Act, or, it was a random act. And so people are like, oh yeah, that's a normal thing. It wasn't, you're a weirdo and you're like stepping in my business. So again, these drops that you put out, and the drops that the people are listening are trying to, do their creativity, express those same things. All of it matters. And that's what I'm hearing from you. Every drop, every drip system, it does. And whether it's on TV,
it all counts.
Book or whatever. Yes. And just one unknown act, it doesn't matter. All of that good adds collectively. And that leads me to the BYU radio show. Tell us, okay, you've done all these different things and just had these flourishing, blooming all on your garden. What was the impetus for this? And how did you get into that? And what's been the joy and the new learning experience, this new yes and, which I should have qualified and clarified earlier. This yes and in improv is you take what you're given and then you build on it and say, and then you build on it. So you're building on this, and now you have this BYU radio show. What was the building? What's been the growing experience on this?
Well, I think that I was always like, I've always been drawn to people, and I want to have conversations and talk. And, whether I was just doing my acting as freelance or just doing voiceover work and things like that at the time, and starting to wrap my head around, Chris's diagnosis. And as he was getting ready to go on permanent disability, he was a tenured professor at Utah Valley University and head of the theater department. And as he said, I'll teach as long as I can, but I think once I lose my voice, teaching, I can't type out everything and interact in the way. And he was getting very tired. And I mean, the disease is just horrible. And so he needed really full-time care. And as that was happening, it was very apparent that I would need to go, instead of like freelance, to full-time employment to take care of, 5 kids, and we all want to go to college. And, and so this opportunity came up, and we felt like it was such a miracle and such a blessing just to be able to talk to interesting people about interesting things. And it really, like, the timing of it and being able to take care of him and then do that in the morning just was such a miracle to us and so enjoyable. And so for the Lisa show, we've been able to talk about, informative and inspiring and also really entertaining people about, how to live a better life, really. Like, there's so much out there and information that it can feel very panicky of like, well, what should I be doing? And what's the best way for this? And we all know that what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And so we've tried to really present these kinds of conversations of, well, you might be worried about this, so this might help. Or did you hear about this? This is kind of a cool thing. And sometimes it's, the stories and the interviews that we have will make you laugh. And sometimes they're like, oh, I've never thought about it in that way. Or, oh, that's going to give me a different perspective, or just something that could be useful, we hope, in bringing that to people. And it's just been so rewarding and so fun to be able to do it. And such a great focus for me to sort of get outside of my own head and my own life, whether it's good or bad. And it's been both, to be able to look at how other people have done interesting things with their lives, or have just really added to the value of my life, whether it's to save me time or money or concern or worry, or how to have a good conversation with my teen, or how much screen time is too much time, or, an interesting new sport that I didn't know about, or, just all these fun things. It's just been so creative. So I loved it. I feel so lucky to be able to do it. I can't even tell
you. Can tell it's like this nourishment to all the flowers in your garden. I keep going back to that because I just see you blooming all these seeds that are just popping. And I have to laugh because the first time I met you in person was as a guest on your show. And we were talking a little bit before we started here, but I was just remembering, I was all like, oh, I'm going to meet her in person. So I had my sharp shirt and my sharp suit, and I'm walking in and I'm doing this interview, and I'm going a million miles an hour, and I'm forgetting it's a 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. show, right? So I'm the poor people listening Mach 5. They're going to get this work shaking, right? But it was so gorgeous.
No, it was awesome.
we walked out together and we were standing in the hall, and that I remember just that feeling. And this is what I feel like you also bring to the table with that radio is, yes, people are sharing things and you're feeling that creative thing, but you had this way of connecting with me that I just felt like you're my new best friend, want you to be my neighbor, like, and listening and connecting. And again, that driver of love. And like you said, that's at the end of the day, that is the most important thing, is how you do make people feel. I had a touch point with you in that moment.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
It stayed with me, and I'm not the only one. And again, I don't want you to feel like I'm just putting you up on this pedestal, but hey, a little bit, but I'm just saying that we all can do this on the daily. That's what I'm saying. It's so doable that we can take what we have, and in our creative expression, we can have that driver of love. I think that is just stunning and so beautiful. And now you found another way that works for your family, but also be able to bring that out into the world in even a bigger way, a better way, in all the ways that you're developing. So I want to ask you really quickly, on this show, we like to ask some signature questions. And one of them is, what have you felt called to create? And I feel like we've heard all these beautiful things that you have felt moved to do, and that's been beautiful. What do you feel moved to create from here? Because I love this yes and in fact, I love this quote, and I've got to share it, and I hope I don't embarrass you. But this again is from that devotional, BYU devotional, yes and. I love that you said, yes and. My yes and way of seeing life as one long improvisational story has helped me become more comfortable with the idea that the future is never what you think it will look like, and that we're all just making it up as we go. And when we do it with great love and intention, when we ask ourselves the big questions in life, we get to choose what we offer moving forward. So moving forward, what do you feel called to create in your life?
I feel called to create a beautiful life. Mm-hmm. I feel like, and I'll get emotional, I feel like the worst thing that I could do for Christopher's legacy, for the legacy of our family, my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, is to take this horrible loss that we have experienced and turn the rest of my life into a tragedy. I think that's the worst thing that I could do. And there are certainly a lot of moments and a lot of days where I think, well, you gave it a shot, Lisa, time to give up, like cut your loss. Like, this is too hard. I feel called to create a beautiful life, a happy life that is full of loving, wonderful relationships. My children deserve it. My grandkids that I don't have. I talk about these imaginary grandkids a lot because
nudging.
I want them someday. I'm trying to manifest them. To create that beautiful creative life that I've always wanted, that I wanted as a little girl. And to say that because the worst thing happened to me, it doesn't mean that everything is horrible too, right? I think it would be really easy to, when you do have a worst case scenario happen and such a huge loss, like with the absence of Chris, it's so easy to say, this is it, then this, and I promised him that I wouldn't. And so I do feel like that. I also feel called to create more relationships, better relationships with my children and with my friends. And because I saw that that's it, that none of us knows how much time we have, and not to be morbid, but, I've had a lot of close friends recently pass away unexpectedly. None of us know how much time we have. And the time that we have on earth is so precious. And it's so important. And so our opportunities to create love, to create good experiences, not just for ourselves, but for other people, I feel that so passionately. And that includes art, right? Like that.
Yes.
It just includes, and it's all encompassing, but the real focus I feel like is, those relationships and how we show up for the world, because it does have a rippling effect.
That is so beautiful, that in any expression of our creativity, that if we have that driver of love, we will have done what we needed to do. If we go about doing good, it will translate in a way that will up level the feeling on the earth, the feeling of people, the feeling when they see it, something that helps them think or be or do, that helps them become better in some way. I absolutely love that. And then the give back, the relationships, you have really opened that lens today of not just lip service to relationships, but what are you doing in your creative expression to develop those relationships, not as an end goal, right? But along the way, on the journey. I remember reading about how in his last days and weeks and months that people would come to the big front window, and they would do improv, and they would do skits, and they would do funny faces and things like that. And it was all about the people. And I love that you have just shared your heart today. You know, it's funny. I didn't know what to call this podcast, and I felt like love, loss, and living a fullness of joy. And that is exactly what it has been today. It has been spot on that. And I feel, and I'm sure the listeners do too, this fullness and richness of, yes, I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to love on those people that are in my proximity and beyond. And I'm going to do and feel that today. Thank you so much for being with us today. This has been beautiful, stunningly beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your kind words and your friendship. So thank you so much.
Love. Honestly, I wish we were in pajamas and we could talk forever.
I know, right?
Other people like me want to get a hold of you and they're going to stampede after this, where is the best way for them to find you and how to find you?
I am on the BYU radio. If you download the BYU radio app, it's free. You can listen to the Lisa Show, and we're going through a major transformation right now, which is really exciting to have like really more in-depth conversations. And so I hope that listeners will give me a try. Give me a try. I promise authenticity. And I'm also on Instagram at Your Funny Valentine if you want to see me making fun of myself.
I love it. And get more love, more joy, and feel this on the daily and get that boost. Lisa, we love and adore you. Thank you for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, if you enjoyed these interviews, go below, rate, review, and subscribe. We have more fabulous people, fabulous interviews, and ways to bless and uplift your life and help you with your creative art and skill. Remember, we appreciate you being here to take your next step and navigate your intersection of faith, creativity, and professional skill.